So we're going to put together this Forest MUW. It's out of a 2011 Ford van. It's probably closer to 475W. There's really not too many differences except for the fact that the wiring harness and solenoid's a little bit different, and a couple of little slight changes here and there. Now, we got everything cleaned up. It's all disassembled. I have a video on that on how to disassemble this. We put it in our big wash tank. We washed everything up, cleaned it, put it on this bench. This is going to be the building bench. You should have nothing else on your building bench but the actual unit you're working on. That is my rule of thumb. It's carried me along this far and it's worked pretty good. The other thing we have done, since we broke the transmission down, is order all the appropriate parts that we need to put this one back together. So we have a banner kit, a filter, we have a overdrive band, we have, what else? All the accumulators, the 1, 2, 2, 3, and whatever else that you would need to put your unit together. This unit actually needed a planet set, so we got a planet set. We got a brand new direct drum. The direct drum in ours was iffy, but we got a brand new one from Ford because this is a weak link in these transmissions. The earlier ones not so much, but for some reason these later ones, they just tend to get blown up. Now, our case is over here. We're going to start rebuilding this by prepping this case up. So make sure this whole case is stripped down. I already started by putting the wiring harness in. There's one O-ring for this wiring harness. Put that in there. Then we have our EPC. And then depending on whether or not you're going to put a shift kit in these units, which I highly recommend, you would work on that shift kit too. This unit was already done once before, and it has the shift kit in it. So a lot of the steps for the shift kit I'm not going to show you in this video because it's already done. But I can tell you that the shift kit does have a cup plug right here that you have to install. The earlier units have a filter in this hole, so make sure you take that filter out, which would be most likely clogged, and then you put the orifice cup plug in there. So, with that said, let's go ahead and build this unit. I recommend in all units you buy a brand new EPC. They're inexpensive and it will save you a lot of headaches in the future. These EPCs, it's the pressure control for the whole entire transmission. So if these go bad, you could potentially fry up the whole unit, or you could have weird problems like bangs, crashes, slips. So get yourself a new EPC. There's no way to actually really test these things to see whether or not mechanically they're okay. You can do an ohm test, but besides that, you could have the ohm test could check out, but mechanically inside of here, the little seat that the needle hits might be worn out. You wouldn't have any idea. So my suggestion is to chuck it and buy a new one. So let's put our EPC in. We're going to grease it up. There's 2 O-rings on here. I'm going to grease up the case, and it should pop right in. Carefully don't rip any O-rings, which they do rip. So make sure when you're assembling the transmission, use the appropriate transmission assembly lube. Now this isn't Vaseline, this isn't bearing grease, this is special transmission assembly lube. You can buy it where you get your transmission parts. The difference between this and regular bearing grease is that, one, it's thinner, and the other thing, it will dissolve into the properties of the transmission fluid. So it will actually, when it gets hot, it will mix into the tranny fluid and you won't know. If you use Vaseline or bearing grease, it'll actually get stuck there, and it could get it could cause problems, hang up things in the valve body, get stuck in the filter. We don't want to use bearing grease. Bearing grease doesn't dissolve at 170 degrees, whereas opposed to this will dissolve. It'll go into the unit once it's on startup, once it gets a little warm, and then that's it. Let's put together our linkage assembly for manual arms. So we have what they call the rooster for the Prindle switch and the spring. This assembly will look this way. Sometimes these will fall out upon disassembly. Just make sure it's going to go in like this, like that. This arm is going to face towards the unit, like that. So we're going to put this in. Alright, next we have our parking crawl system. There's 3 pieces. You have a spring, you have the shaft, and then you have the actual parking crawl. So we're going to put this in. Now, you don't need to have one of these fancy jigs that I have here to build one of these transmissions. I mean, anybody can just do it in their backyard. You just put it on the bench or table, whatever you're working on. Having these fancy jigs, it's not really necessary. I wouldn't even advise buying it if it's just going to be a one-time thing that you're going to build one transmission for yourself. Because they are fairly expensive, so, you know, I have it because we do so many transmissions here. So we're going to put in the parking crawl. Next step, we got a manual arm. Now, the early manual arms, they didn't really have a problem rusting out, but these later ones, they rust out where the neutral safety switch bolts onto. So the switch will probably break, which is fine. You buy a new one, and then what I do is clean this off with a wire brush really, really well. You have two slots in here. Those are for aligning up the neutral safety switch, and it spins the neutral safety switch. So make sure it's all cleaned up, because you don't want to break the new neutral safety switch going on because this isn't clean enough. Before I put the switch on too, and after the unit's all done, the last thing I'll do is actually paint this to help it, to give it a little protection from the elements. So let's put this in. And we got our nut. Alright, so next we have our accumulators I'm putting in. While I was talking to Larry, we have our 2, 3, and now we're going to put our 1, 2. This thing already has a shift kit, so you're going to put 2 orange ones in the bottom. It's 2 big orange ones. Now we're going to put our accumulator in here. These springs have a tendency of breaking, so this shift kit's great because they always come with all these new springs. Now we have 2 purple ones and a stopper. And it's a very heavy setup, but it works good. Lastly, we have our cover. We get our snap ring. Okay, and that's it. Alright, so the case is pretty much done. We're going to flip it over. And we're going to put our case bearing down. Now the case bearing, and there's another bearing in the unit between the reverse and the forward drum that look very similar. And they actually changed the design a couple of times with this. As you can see, they almost look like the same size. The later one is even thinner, so it resembles each other more closely. But if you use the reverse drum, you'll see one is really loose and one's really tight. And if you put the wrong one down here, it won't sit right. So if it's not sitting right, you got the wrong bearing in there. Next, we're going to get our output shaft ready. Later output shafts have solid rings, and I love using these solid rings for the direct drum. Again, the direct drum is a weak link, and these solid rings really have a great seal. So I have a special tool to get these on. Now, if you're careful, you don't need this special tool, but it does really help. The tool, I don't even know where you could buy the tool anymore. I got this years ago. Before Ford even designed these solid rings, they used to make them aftermarket. And I used to use these in every single early AOD back in the 90s. But Ford wisened up and they realized they worked really well, and now they put them in their own units. But it used to just be an aftermarket thing. But the engineers, I guess, said, hey, this is a great idea, and they started putting them in their units. So this is going to be the Teflon rings you're going to get in your kit. Now you can still use the cut rings, the orange cut rings, in replace of these solid rings. But whatever you do decide, make sure you change these and throw out the old ones, because you do not want to use those old ones. I've seen those old ones get worn out, ripped up. They just get smaller, thinner from the drum spinning around so much, and sometimes you can barely even see how worn out it is. And you try to air check it, and it just won't air check good. So we're going to let this sit like that for a little bit, and it'll help seat it. We have 3 metal rings here on the output shaft. Now we get our direct drum. So in the direct drum we have an inner lip seal that's going to go down here. I will give you a closer look at this in a minute. And then I just take my finger and I push the seal out, the lip part out. Make sure it's sitting right. I always use my fingers to feel them. We have the outer lip seal for the direct drum piston. And there's a little check ball in here. I shake it, make sure I hear the check ball rattling in there. If I don't, it's time to clean it up a little bit better. If the unit's going to be sitting for a while, you might want to put some tranny fluid on that check ball, make sure it doesn't rust. I'm just going to put that grease all over this stuff. You know, you can't put too much trans assembly grease on here. It's the more the better. So we grease that up. Take our handy dandy lip seal tool, which can be a feeler gauge or whatever you decide to use. Piano wire helps. That works good too. Very thin piano wire. And we get our piston in there. Retaining spring, return spring, I'm sorry, and our snap ring. So we're going to go to our arbor press and put these in. Now we're going to do the air check. So we're going to put in our friction pack. You'll have 6 direct steels, 6 frictions, and a pressure plate. The steel doesn't look so good, so we have something to replace this. Then I'll just put it in for now, just to air check it. Now, I'm making sure that the clearance is good. The rule of thumb is about 10 thousandths of clearance per friction. We have 6 frictions in here, so we're looking around like 60 thousandths. I wouldn't go more than 60 in this drum. I usually go around 40, but just make sure it's not more than 60. You don't want to make it too tight, or else you can have binds. So the hole you want to check is going to be the top hole on the output shaft. And just, that sounds good. Sometimes you got to put a little training oil in it. There we go. See the training oil, once that oil gets there, it will expand. It's exactly what we want to do. So what we do with this is put it on our ring gear. Now that we know it's good, and get our snap ring in there. You can put some grease on those 3 rings we put in earlier, and we'll put it down to here. Alright, so we found the micrometer, and we found 6 good thick steels. The later ones are thick, around 78 thousandths. The thinner ones, the early ones are thinner, around 68 thousandths, and it makes a huge difference. So make sure you get the right thickness steels in here. The parts guys, I guarantee you, they will mess up. So when you order the steels for this unit, they will give you just Murphy's Law, the wrong size, and they look almost identical. Even years later, I need a micrometer to measure this out. So make sure you're putting in what came out. So, let's get this steel out of here. And then we have our shank, which the step is going to face down. We got a brand new bearing. These bearings go bad all the time. We're going to put our new bearing in there. And then our hub, which looks similar to the forward hub, but has a bigger hole. But you can't mix it up. It's impossible. And then we're going to stack it up nice and easy. You'll see that this moves a little bit. Just try to keep it center until the planet gets in there to hold it straight. And then we got our pressure plate. And you'll see over here, this is how much room you should have. Alright, now that's in. Check right now. Okay, so we got the direct drum assembly together, and then we dropped it in the unit. There's a bearing that sits underneath that direct drum, and then we put a snap ring on the bottom here, and then the band that sits on top of here. So next is going to be the planet assembly. With the band, you will see that band is for this servo here. If you could see that movement, you could see what's going on. Next. Now, while you guys were away, I changed the bushings. Always change the bushing in your sun gear. Always change the bushing down here in your planet. We put our sprag in, then we put our center support down. We're going to put our planet now into the unit. The small hole goes where the overdrive anchor will be, and this big hole is for the speedometer facing out. give it a little turn down there, and it'll fall down. If it does not fall down, something's wrong. Next we have our Jesus clip. These could be a pain in the neck. I'll show you where it goes in a second. The Jesus clip, as you can see, we're looking down, is right in here. And it's face down in a U. If you could see it. And it sits just like that. Now, sometimes it gets in the way of the snap ring. Just give it a little tap to get the rest of it down there. The snap ring has a lip that goes up. That's going to be on the bottom of the unit. And you want the hole facing that speedometer sensor. Like this. So you have the lip up right here, snap ring goes around and ends right here. There and there is exposed, no snap ring. That's the opening right here. Lip goes around. Next we're going to have our sun gear. Put a little grease on your new bushing. Slide that down there. We have a bearing. There's many different styles of these bearings, so make sure that your bearing that you're using matches the sun gears that you're putting down. These later bearings will not work on the early sun gears. And you'll have a lot of problems. Next we have a bearing with a little lip on it that's going to face down this way. We have our forward hub. And in the forward hub, the other bearing is going to go down just like that. So make sure it sits in the hole, the pocket, so it could ride freely. If it's the other way around, it won't be able to work properly. Early unit, the hole's not going to be here, the hole's going to be here. Flip and a flip on the early units, 2 flips up. The later units have only 1 flip up, like I showed you before. And the flip up will be here, and it'll be flat here with the opening here. This is the early one, 2 flips up, 1 flip, opening here. It's an early style sun gear, so we'll take the early style bearing. Instead of the 2-piece, this will take a 1-piece. Put this right here. You will notice that it's flat here. If you try to use the later one, it won't fit right. And if you try to use this bearing on the later sun gear, it won't fit right. This one's got the flip up, it's going down. Put our hub down, and then the side with the edges coming out goes inside the pocket. Our shaft. Now we're going to build our forward and reverse drums. start with our forward drum, make sure that there's 2 check balls in here. Make sure that they're both free. You can shake them and hear them. Now, I have a couple of special tools to get these pistons in. I'm going to get our lip seals on.
Before you do anything else, throw this into that Acura. They're going to be here in a minute. The Acura auto lift.
A lot of grease. A lot of grease. Put some oil down those 2 holes and then grease it up. Now, again, the tool is going to be for the middle lip seal, and then you're going to work around the edges of the lip seal. It's a little tricky, but the tool really helps. And you could do it without the tool, but the tool really, really helps. Put this on the auto press. Next, we have 2 Teflon seals that go, they're solid. There's no special tool, you just take your scribe and carefully work it down. And then you're going to use the pump stator to size it up. There's a lot of flexibility in these seals, so it's not that difficult to get these in there. But again, use a lot of grease. Then take your pump stator, grease in here. Make sure it's kind of centered. It doesn't fall down right away. Recenter it. There we go. And double check it, and it looks okay. Second one we're going to put down there. Second one's a lot easier to resize. And that's done. We'll take our clutch pad. Drop them in. You got the wavy steel, and then you got the rest of the steels. Which, again, this one, I want to see if we have any extra. I'm going to put some new ones. Some new ones instead, because these look a little worn out. Brand new steels. Unlike the direct drum, there's only one size of these steels, but there are 2 different sizes for the waved return steel that sits on the bottom. We'll check our clearance, that's good, and then just inspect the drum. They tend to crack right along the edge here where the snap ring rides, and these will blow out. But this one's in good shape. And now for our reverse drum. Let's get our piston. Again, make sure the check ball is rattling around. These are lathe cut seals instead of lip seals, so they're square. There's no lip to it. As you can see, it's a square seal. There's no up and down like the how the lip seals are designed, where there's a top and a bottom. So you don't have to worry about that. But they are a lot trickier to get in. Now this one, I've never tried to put this in without the special tool. I'm sure if you go to any transmission shop and just ask the builder nicely if you could put this in for you, it would help. And I'm sure they'll do it. Take 2 seconds, put a lot of grease down there, get in your tool, and walk over to your ARP press. Pops right now. Now, this unit was already built, and somebody put a spiral snap ring for the intermediate spray. These spiral snap rings are awesome. I wouldn't build it without it. The old Ford snap rings, they blow out a lot, and then you spike it down, and it gets locked in there. Now, so we're not going to change that. We're not going to touch it. Somebody already updated it. Next, on the reverse, we have a little ring that goes down and sits in a little pocket. Then we have our flower beveled spring. Put that down. And then we have a big, thick, wavy snap ring. These, you gotta bang in there. Now our clutch pack. Some will be most commonly you'll have a 3 clutch pack system set up in here. Check it. But they do make a 4 clutch pack, and the difference is in the pressure plate. So you could actually take your 3 clutch pack system, get the appropriate pressure plate, and make it a 4 clutch pack. And it may be a little bit more heavy duty. We put our bearing down there, bearing sitting down, grease it so it stays there, and then wiggle and it'll fall down into your forward drum. Alright, now let's get a close look here. You'll see this is what it should look like right now. We have our bearing, we have our shaft, our hub, our sun gear, and now we're going to put this assembly straight down into it. So, grab it. It's a lot of spinning, and you'll see it bang down. You'll hear it like clank down when it gets down right. You could also look in this hole right there, and you could see where it was riding at one point. And as long as that's where it should look like, if it looks like that all the way around, then you're in. If it does not look like that, it's not down all the way for whatever reason. Alright, next we got our bands. So these can be a little tricky. We put our band in, we're going to get our servo. There's a lot of grease. We're reusing this servo, but a lot of times these servos wear out. This one is in pretty decent shape because it was done. It's got an updated pin with an O-ring right here, but that's for another video. Put that in like that, let it sit there. Now this is the tricky part. Get yourself together. The kits now come with new snap rings, so throw out your old snap ring. These break a lot, so now they come in the kit. Get your snap ring pliers, a stride, and a screwdriver. So what you're going to do is get the pin hooked on that band, and then hold it with your hammer. Get your snap ring pliers, and you'll push it down. So double check with the hammer, screwdriver, and that looks good. And you will see right down there that the pin is on the band. If you don't do that, that band will stay back here, the pin will be up, and you will miss the band. Next we will take our intermediate spread set up. The pressure plate will go down first. And this should be right before the edge. This steel should fit right before the edge. If it's over this edge, then there's a problem. So that's what it should look like. And then you have your return spring. Now there's many different types of these. This is the most latest one. You'll see right here there's a slot right here, and that goes on the top. Then there's a tab there and a tab over there. The other one, you'll have a wave and a ring, and that's it. You could use either or. As long as you have a bonded intermediate piston, which is this, then you could use either one of those springs. Okay, next we're going to build our pump. So we're going to take our pump, bang out our old seal, bang out our bushing. This I have not, although the other bushings I changed, this one I haven't changed yet. We'll bang this out. Do a quick inspection, everything looks good. Clean it off a little. The little notch is going to sit right there. Okay, it's facing this way. I use the arc press. Use the arc press, it goes in straight all the time. Next we have, then you could stake it down at the edge. I haven't been staking it. I used to stake it all down. I don't do it anymore because I don't want to ruin the bushing. And if it's gonna move, it's gonna move. That's not gonna prevent it from your unit failing. So just let it, it's up to you if you want to stake it down or not. I don't bother anymore. I think it's kind of pointless. I use a little Loctite on these. Not that you have to. It's just because it's a front seal, give it a little extra security, but it's not going to go anywhere. piston in. Piston has a check ball in it. Do your shake, make sure it's moving, and then you're going to put that check ball facing that top bolt at the 12 o'clock position. Check ball is right here, and it'll just pop right down. Get our gears, grease them up really good. Put some grease on our new bushing. Take our seal. Grease this up. We're going to grease up the edge of our case where that O-ring rides. And we'll put our gasket down now. And if you prefer, you could use dowel pins to line it up as it goes down. I normally just use one, sometimes I don't use any. Now, tricky part coming up right now. So, the bottom seals on this for the reverse drum. You have two very big steel rings. You're gonna have to really get some calluses on your fingers for this one. And you're gonna work it. Careful using the scribe. Great. And that's it. Yeah. You see it's in, right? So we'll put the next one down. See if I could do this with one hand. I don't think I'll be able to. Nope. Oh, I'm so close. But it'll look like this. There. Now these top two rings, the later design, they have plastic. If you have the steel rings here, you have to stay with the steel rings. Do not put the plastic ones in. But if you have the plastic ones, you have to use the plastic ones. So just give it a little grease. Put them in. These are easy. Next, line this up with your pump. So it's going to drop down just like that. Okay, you could see this is our pump, this is the top of the pump, and here is our check ball lined up with that hole. We're going to bolt that thing down. Got our washer. These washers are selective, so if you decide to change it, make sure it's the right thickness. I take an old converter hub, make sure your pump gears are free, and they are. Now we're going to take this whole assembly and drop it down into our case. Give it a little tap, and then we'll bolt it down. And now all we got left is the valve body. pressure plate. There are different thicknesses on both the frictions and the steels. The steels are very selective, come in all different sizes, so be very careful on making a clutch pack here. Later frictions were thin. The early ones are very thick. Again, this is something we're talking about having to use a micrometer to measure. You won't be able to see this with your eye.
Still coming out, or?
Still trying to get it out.
Say something? And she's done. Finito.